Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. Thanks so much for joining me. This is a Heart for Business podcast. We talk to small business owners in the caregiving space who really drive their business because of their heart. And I am thrilled and delighted to welcome Steve Gurney with us today. Hi, Steve.
Hey, great seeing you, Denise.
So you started your business, Positive Aging Sourcebook, in 1990. So 31 years ago, which I'm sure sounds just absolutely mind-blowing when you think back 31 years ago.
Yeah, I think number one, every person who's starting a business, there's this fear and trepidation. Am I going to succeed? Will I make it past, 5 years? Because so many businesses don't last that long. And as I reflect back and I'm like, I can't believe that I've been doing this for over 30 years, in a variety of iterations, which we can get into. But yeah, and I love the title of this podcast because I honestly will say that when I started this business, there, as much as we all dream of, the making a lot of money and learning about and the visions of having this profitable $1 billion company, really the analogy that I draw is that I was just like an artist. It was that I had an idea and I had a blank canvas, and let's see if other people like my art. And then when I saw that they liked my art, then it was sort of like, well, how much will they pay for my art? And adjusting that. And then it's sort of like, well, if I'm going to continue to be an artist into the future, I need to run this so that I make enough money that I can survive. And that's, one way that I kind of look at it.
So I think of the three tenets of someone who has a good heart for business, and that is cash flow, and that is customers, and that is cause, meaning that you have to take care of all three in order to really feel successful. And I think anymore today in our world, we are looking to really support a cause-driven organization. So
Right.
tell us how you describe your cause.
Yeah. So the catalyst for me starting Positive Aging Sourcebook was seeing the challenge that my family faced in my grandfather going to a nursing home. At the time, I was in college, and so my cause was, could I create a resource guide that could help other families that were going through this same journey? And the and cash flow and what was the other one?
Customers.
Customers. Okay. Cash flow and customers, they were sort of secondary. Okay. I guess I should say customers. So the way that this was going to be sustainable was it's a comprehensive resource directory, but I was selling advertising in it, and that's what was going to sustain it. So customers were very important to me, but my cash flow, it took me several years to get that one dialed in, because my approach was, well, if a customer is going to pay me $1, that's better than nothing, so I'll take $1. When in reality, I began to, over the years, began to discipline myself as, you've got to say no to some customers if they're not willing to pay what your service is valued at.
I just had this conversation with myself over the weekend. I have an opportunity to work with an organization. They gave me the scope of work, and they gave me basically their offer. And it's a great offer, but it's not where I want it to be. And so I had the conversation around, okay, do I just take it? Or do I say, this is what I want? And I decided, you know what, this is what I want. And if they can't meet me, and we're talking about just a little bit of money, that's the difference. But I thought if they can't meet that, it's not the right offer for me.
Right. This is, I've dealt with this personally, and I deal with it on a daily basis with the conversations that I have with other entrepreneurs. And it's a very difficult um, dilemma that we lean into on the opposite direction. And the interesting thing is that over the years, I've often seen where you can there's different ways that you can work within somebody's budget. And so it could be, listen, I understand that this is all you can afford. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to prepare any of the great reports that I could prepare on this project. I'm going to show you how to do them, and then we can work within your budget. So there's a lot of creative ways to work within people's budgets. One of the things that I do, Denise, and I don't want to derail this, is I have weekly discussions with various professionals like elder law attorneys and aging life care managers. And oftentimes the cost of those services comes up, and people will say, they'll come on the discussion, will say, I can't afford an elder law attorney or an aging life care manager. And these professionals are always sort of like, we can usually work within anybody's budget in that we just don't do as much as we used to, as we would do if you sort of gave us carte blanche. And like I said, it might be that you're hiring an aging life care manager for 2 hours of work, and you're doing some of the work that they would be doing, but they're guiding you. And so as entrepreneurs, we can get creative on our pricing.
Absolutely. And I think when you're talking about services that are really an investment, which is like an elder law attorney, that's a good investment to understand how to make sure that the future is protected. That saves you money. It is a concern sometimes with budget, but I love this idea that when we understand someone's budget, we can work within it. We can give different offerings. We don't have to say, nope, I can't help you. And I
Yeah.
do think it all starts with a conversation, right? I guess if we were to think of a fourth C to add to the C's that I listed, a conversation would be the fourth one, because when you have a conversation with someone, you really get an insight into what are their needs, what are their budgets, what are the obstacles, and you can walk them through to really create something that works for them. That's how you take care of the customer. It's the
Yep.
conversation.
And boy, there's so many C's in this. Yeah, we're gonna. But the one thing, and actually, one insight that might be helpful for your audience that I've discovered for those that are out there looking at the senior living space as a venue and what they're offering. What I hear time and time again, and this is the difficulty with the cash flow, is that we have so many nonprofit government supportive services that are in this space. So if you're not aware of the area agencies on aging, every county in the country is served by an area agency on aging. And a lot of times there are low cost and no cost services that are out there to support older adults. The other thing is that we've got, and there are quote unquote competition when we're in business in this field. The other competition that we have is family is supposed to take care of family. Like if you're the oldest daughter, it's your job to take care of mom and dad. I can't pay an aging life care manager. I'm supposed to be doing that. And so that's one of the challenges that we face in this field is that we can create these valuable services that people should be paying for, but because of the low cost, no cost services that are out there, and because of the family obligations and guilt as well, it plays a role. Is that, aren't I supposed to be doing this? Can I really have somebody else helping mom with her move? Well, yes, because the person that knows what they're doing can do it in less time. And now the time that you can be with mom is spent enjoying each other's company, not fighting over should we throw away the crock pot or keep the crock pot.
Or the teapot. That was the
Teapot.
situation with my
Yeah, the
parents.
teapot.
Okay. So this is really interesting because I listened to a podcast yesterday and the host had a guest who talked about how we have moved from the age of information into the age of insights. And I think that's what we do. We bring an expertise to this space that allows insights. So the Area Agency on Aging is really a necessary resource. It's the first place you go to, but it's not the last stop. It's where you go for information. And then you take that information and you connect with a professional who has the expertise so that you receive insights. Because oftentimes what happens is you hear about referrals, but you don't know what they mean. And you have to really dig through what the referrals are with insights. And it's a professional like an aging life care specialist or a certified caregiving consultant who offers that insight and expertise, which saves you heartache and time and money, really. So it's the idea of this investment.
Mhm.
I'm curious as to what you see in terms of what's been the biggest change in the senior living space since you launched your directory in 1990.
Well, I mean, because it's been a span of over 30 years, there's been several, obviously the internet, I, it blows my mind that I remember when I started this, um, it was AOL, you'd have the modem and there wasn't really much there. And really the most important, aside from my computer, which I had my little dot matrix printer that I would print my letters out and things like that, I was really excited to have a fax machine. And that was a luxury item in an office. It was especially a home office back then. But the so the fact that we had an internet and that content is out there to help families, and to even the internet serves as a great vehicle for people to order my printed publication. Okay, I mean, and that's been great. All of the various apps that have popped up, I mean, over the last few years, I mean, it's amazing. You don't have to hire a software engineer to sort of program your website, or if there's a tool that you need in your business, I just get on Google and I just say, this is what I'm looking for. And I just kind of keep on going. And, usually for 30 bucks a month, I've got this little website based app that is solving that business problem for me. Whereas, 20 years ago, I might have had to pay a software developer $10,000 to create this customized piece of software. But I have to say, the change in the last year with us being forced to use technology to communicate with each other has been probably the most significant development. I mean, let's just think about this, Denise. You and I have known each other through most of our career, but the ease at us to connect and talk to each other has been rather limited. But now with Zoom, not only have we communicated in the last couple of weeks more than we have, but now we're having this face-to-face conversation with the two of us and your audience. And even though we both had the capability of using conferencing software over a year ago, we just weren't using it because we still would have been, I would have been, hey, Denise, if you're ever in Washington, D.C., give me a call and we can go to Starbucks instead of using these tools. So those are some of the changes that I've seen. And it's impacted elder care dramatically. Like I think this last year, while it's been sad, the isolation and the effect of the pandemic, the exciting thing is that families are able to connect with mom and dad much better than they were before the pandemic. And that to me is exciting, that there's less isolation amongst people that love each other.
You've had lots of, you talked about it earlier, iterations with your business. Washington Post actually bought your business, and then you were, would you say, a division of the Washington Post?
Yeah, I can kind of walk you through that, and that might be interesting to your audience. So I started this guide in my basement, and I was in my early 20s and just figured it out. I had never worked for a publishing company. It was just figuring it out. And it's and I think sometimes that's a great way to enter a business is that um there's a lot of unknowns that are out there. You're going to discover them. It's never an easy paved road. But again, if you've got that heart for business and your idea and the passion, you'll overcome all of that. I ate a lot of baked potatoes in those early years, and I had a part-time job in the evening at a department store to pay my rent. But I got through it, and it was a great learning experience. And then about 8 years in on this journey, I had the Washington Post and two other companies kind of all come out of the woodwork at the same time who were interested in what I was doing. And I realized I was at a crossroads. I was either going to have one of them was going to be my competitor, okay, if I didn't end up selling to them. One of them would probably become a competitor. And so I knew that I either was going to sell this business and join another team for a new journey, or I needed to prepare myself for a significant competitor in my market. And I really got along with the folks at the Washington Post. They had just started a new division that was doing an apartment guide. They had just bought a new homes guide. And when they looked at the next space that they should go into, they were thinking senior living. And so when I met with these two other publishers, I was sort of like, wow, to just be in the same office as them, that's worth it. To me, I'm going to learn from these two veteran publishers, but then also to have the resources of the Washington Post. And the irony is, while I did have those financial resources, I was not in charge of them anymore. And so it was funny when I sold the business, all the nonprofits that I supported, the memory walks and all that type of stuff were like, oh, wow, Steve, you're with the Washington Post. So now you can make a bigger donation than you were making before. And it was the opposite. It was like, nope, sorry, guys, brakes are on. These guys want me to make a profit. And now I'm actually working on a budget that I'm accountable to others. So that was a challenge, but it was a good challenge. In fact, it's one that I give a lot of entrepreneurs. It's sort of like, look, you're the captain of the ship. You're not accountable to anybody, okay? That accountability, being financially accountable to somebody else can help you make better decisions. So I tell people, pick somebody. It could be your parents, it could be your spouse, it could be your best friend. It's sort of like, hey, I'm going to give you quarterly financial statements and I want you to look at them and I want you to tell me to do better. Just that pressure can really, it actually helped me grow my business 400% when I went over to the Washington Post. It was just the pressure of succeeding for somebody else helped me grow the business. It was a standalone division. We had our own office. We were just accountable to them. And our boss at the Washington Post was very smart. He knew we were nimble entrepreneurs and that in a large company culture, it might be difficult for us to operate the way that we were operating. So we were sort of like this little experiment that he managed. And to his point, 20 years later, they moved us into the corporate offices, and it was like oil and water. It was, big businesses need to run a certain way, and small entrepreneurs operate in a different manner. I could have operated there for the rest of my career. My staff really didn't like it. The big business operation, which again led to another chapter. A very a great one was when my staff, found jobs and went out there to follow their passion. I was able to go to the folks at the Washington Post and say, "Hey guys, how about I take this back and run it on my own again?" And I was able to orchestrate that. And so I feel just like a 20-year-old kid. Now I'm back to running my business out of my house the way I did back in the 90s. However, what I would say, I talked about this earlier, it's so much easier now because I've got all this technology and apps that enable me to run my business more efficiently. Just QuickBooks in and of itself is just, it's so easy to use and handle your bookkeeping and accounting. It's great. So I sort of mapped out my journey there.
Okay, so that is fascinating. I want to say too that I also believe that starting where I started, which I had to teach myself everything, was the best thing I did for my business. Because now I have this, it's a skill set that I can teach myself anything. I taught myself HTML in 1995. If I can do that, I can do anything. There's a confidence that you actually build into your business because you know you can do it. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's talk about your vision for your business. Now it's back to you. So it's back in your house. In
Yeah.
5 years, where do you want to be with it?
Well, that's a great interview question when people are going on job interviews, and it's one that I wish I could sort of just snap my fingers and give you my mission statement. And hopefully in the next few months I would be able to do that. But I'm in, with the pandemic, with all the radical changes, with the fact that I've sort of moved, um, I have a wide field of vision on what my future looks like. And I tell entrepreneurs having a wide field of vision is very beneficial because being very focused is beneficial too, but being focused with a wide field of vision enables you to take advantage of opportunities that you might miss otherwise because you're so focused on, this is what I'm doing, I got to stay sharp, I'm going towards this. But if you get too focused, you miss the opportunities. I think my vision for the next 5 years is the values that I have are that I want to help people get through this challenging, let's call it elder care chapter of their lives and their families' lives. I want to help them find resources. I want to help them find solutions. But more importantly, I want I want to do it in an out of the box manner. I want I want them to think about this life stage differently than they have, and differently that the way that they're talking about it now. Oftentimes when people are faced with these challenges, it gets very depressing, and it gets very declinist. It feels like this is not a good thing. And I want to help reframe what aging is to all of us, so that even if you are going through the challenging decision of having a loved one in hospice, that you're looking at it through a different perspective, and you're looking at the positive aspects and the growth aspects for you and your family, as opposed to dreading these decisions. And 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 in doing that, I'm connecting those individuals that are going through these challenges with the resources that are out there in the community, and making good connections. And what that looks like, I don't know just yet. It's going to look a little bit like how I do it now, but I hope it looks a lot different too.
So that was a great explanation of your cause. which is so important because the passion for the business is what keeps the passion, which it's what keeps the business going when you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't meet my cash flow goals this week, but I'm passionate about it.
And I'm glad you're bringing this up, Denise, because um, this is not being critical of the Washington Post and my time there. I'm dealing with another business that I started, and where I find myself as an entrepreneur in a dilemma is when I'm not when the passion isn't there, when the heart isn't there. Like you kind of heard me babbling there, and when I babble like that, that means that I'm really into what I'm doing. But if it becomes monotonous, if it is just sort of like, well, I gotta go through and do this. This is there's an opportunity here. I guess I'm going to take advantage of it. That doesn't work for me. I have to kind of reset, and I have to be like it. And for me, a lot of it's centered around building community. It's building a community of people that need help. It's building a community of people that can help other people. And then it's connecting those communities. And it's ironic, this other business that I was talking about, I started a stand-up paddleboard business about 10 years ago. And that was all about building community. It's like bringing people together to enjoy a healthy, active sport. But I've sort of reached a crossroads on that business where it was more checking a box. This is what I'm doing. It's not about the community anymore. And that's an opportunity where I've either got to reframe or exit stage left and let somebody else do it after that.
It's interesting because you're really talking about risk. And what's interesting for an entrepreneur is sometimes the risk isn't going big, the risk is going wrong. And really, that's what you just talked about. Am I checking the box rather than feeling passionate? And when you're just checking the box, that's the risk of going wrong. And it becomes a time suck. It becomes a drain on your energy if you don't have the passion for it. Okay, this has been fabulous, Steve. So I guess I'm going to ask you one last question. And that is, what's one insight that you have as an entrepreneur that is helpful for anybody who is thinking about starting a small business?
Yeah, and this will probably be blended into several insights, but first off, if you've got the desire, if you've got that dream, if you think that at some point in life that you'd like to try starting a business or an opportunity is out there, you got to go for it. You will learn more about yourself. You will learn more. You will have better skills. The worst thing that happens is the business or the idea doesn't carry on and you have to go back and get a job. Okay. I will tell you, when I hire people, I will hire somebody who tried running their own business or ran their own business over somebody that has only worked jobs 9 out of 10 times, because that person realizes that a paycheck isn't an entitlement, that there is that a business is a working mechanism. And so they will work harder and smarter than somebody that just always, got that magic paycheck in their bank account every week. So go after it. A few of the things that I've talked about here already are have a plan. That's good. You don't need 10-page business plans anymore. You can have a one-pager that just says, hey, I'm going to try X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to revisit this one-pager on a regular basis. But go in with focus, but have a wide field of vision. I've seen so many people that said, hey, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to do X. And then they start marching down the path and their potential customers start asking them for something else. And because they had the wide field of vision, they're like, I can do that. And now their business turned out to be Y. They started out going X. The big business was Y or Z. Okay. And I think that's a huge opportunity for folks.
Absolutely. I think a business plan is good. However, it's not something to marry.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not exactly the right analogy. It's almost like something to date, maybe, where you check in with it and see how it is, but you have to be flexible.
That's changed. That's changed over the last 30 years. It used to be this 10-page business plan, what have you. The other thing is, Denise, you and I, we're similar entrepreneurs. We're bootstrappers. Like, we start businesses and we fund it through credit cards and, or just by getting customers. That's how you fund your business. There are bigger, broader categories that are out there. You may have a business idea that there's no way that you can self-fund it, and you have to go out and get investors. And that's something that's outside of my skill set. I'm more of a bootstrapper, where I prove an idea and then, okay, now I can take this to a different level where I either sell it or get an investor or bring on partners to amplify that idea.
I have found bootstrapping is the quickest way for me to get to the place I want to with my business. The other thing is, I did think about investors, and I had asked others in our space who had gotten investor money or who were trying to, what that experience was like. And the reality is, the investor becomes your customer, and you are spending all your time trying to woo that investor to become the customer. And it takes you away, I believe, from the passion for the business, which is staying connected to your customers, community building, staying focused on your passion. And so I think it's hard to get investor money. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard. And it just changes how you operate your business.
Yeah. And all these articles that you read about folks getting, $2 million, $3 million of funding from investors. I mean, it's exciting and what have you. But what I've found is a lot of those entrepreneurs, they're good at pitching an idea to investors, getting them to pour some money in. But a lot of times they're not good at actually getting the customers, and developing those customer relationships that will make this a sustainable business years to come.
It's so interesting because I think of data versus relationships. And I think data without relationships are just numbers on a spreadsheet. They aren't necessarily a business. And I see that happening with a lot of companies going for investor money. The investors will ask for the data, but if you don't have relationships with your customers, you don't actually have a business. And I'm making a huge leap in saying that I'm not sure an investor is going to say, how many relationships do you have with customers? Because they're looking at the data. What's the market? What's the market opportunity? And that's numbers. I really think you have to have the relationships in order to have a sustainable business. Okay. This was excellent, Steve. This was so much fun. Oh my gosh.
I could keep on talking for the next 3 hours with you, Denise. I love it because there's so few it feels like there's so few people that you can connect with like this, but we're entrepreneurs with hearts, and we're in this caregiving space. And in the scheme of things, there's not that many people who are doing what we're doing. And it's that's what's great about the podcast is we're part of a community, guys. To me, this is what I get up in the morning, is to connect with people that are like-minded like we are. And Denise, I really thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to talk to you and anybody in your audience that wants to reach out. Feel free to connect.
And just quickly, Steve, what's your website address?
Probably the easiest one is proaging.com, PROAGING, pro like positive, aging like growing older. And then Steve@proaging.com is my email address.
And I also wanted to mention that the reason that we know each other is because we had a shared connection. Mirka Liberty, who I've talked about regularly, I considered her to be, I always start to kind of cry when I think about Mirka because she
Oh, me too.
was this amazing force within the space because she was all about connecting. She wanted
Yes.
everybody to know each other. And so she is the reason that we know each other is because we connected through her.
Yeah, and you know, when you think about it, Mirka and her friend Louise, they founded a nonprofit called Children of Aging Parents back in the day when nobody talked about caregiving issues. And that's another reminder. You don't have to go the traditional path to be an entrepreneur. Starting a nonprofit, just starting an initiative in your community or neighborhood is it can serve your entrepreneurial spirits and meet a demand that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Mirka died 10 years ago, I think, but I think it's interesting to think that her presence is around us all the
Oh,
time.
no,
Yeah.
what a
Yeah,
wonderful
what an
memory.
amazing legacy she left for all of us.
Mhm.
Okay, Steve, let's keep in touch. Let's connect on a regular basis. I'd love to have you back to talk about where we're going with our businesses because I
Love
think
it.
this is just it's such an interesting time. And I
Yep.
think to talk about where we want to go and how we want to get there is just a compelling conversation.
Yeah, and for your audience and fans, you're going to be on my discussion and podcast coming up on August 24th. I don't want to date this discussion, but we'll have a recording of it as well at proaging.com if you can't make it on that day or you're listening to this 3 years into the future. But I'm really excited to learn about the certified caregiving consultant role. And I think that is just a great idea that we can help get the word out about.
Okay.
Talk
Thanks,
to you soon.
Steve.
You bet.
And thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. I'm Denise Brown. Be sure to stop by careyearsacademy.com to learn more about my work, to listen to our podcast, and to connect if you'd like to be a guest. We'd love to have you on. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.